Hello. Welcome to today's session of Selling the Couch. I hope you're doing well, having an incredible day. So, the LA wildfires are happening as I am recording this, and I know that many of our colleagues have been directly and indirectly impacted by these fires. So, before even jumping in, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge just the heartbreak of the situation and how so many of us are struggling, and just wanted to also let you know that definitely thinking about you, your loved ones. You're definitely in my thoughts and prayers as we sort of navigate the both like what's happening right now in the moment, but also what I imagine will be many months of piecing things together and rebuilding things. Today's podcast is for you if you have been thinking about LinkedIn and posting more on LinkedIn, or just have been curious about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, to be completely honest, absolutely intimidated me. We've been posting on LinkedIn consistently over the past 2 years and some change. And over that 2 years, we have grown. I basically had about 600 some odd followers. These were friends and colleagues that I knew, but I wasn't really active on LinkedIn. To be honest, I thought the whole point of LinkedIn was basically to share job updates and then occasionally to like post a resume or something. And since I wasn't actively looking for a job, I just didn't really see the purpose for LinkedIn. But over there, about 2 years ago, I started noticing a couple of things. One is, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, I felt like there was a huge change within Twitter and the Twitter landscape. And I was actually posting on Twitter, or X as they call it now, but I had grown on X to just a shade under 5,000 followers. But the reality also was I was connecting with some pretty awesome folks, a lot of founders and creators, but I wasn't connecting with a ton of therapists on X. So I started kind of looking more on LinkedIn, and I made a post 2 years and some change ago. It was literally around Thanksgiving about serving mashed potatoes at our daughter's like Thanksgiving Day school meal, and that post ended up getting a couple of thousand impressions, which I was like so surprised by. And since then we have grown to, as I record this, 3,664 followers from 600. We've reached 550,703 impressions, which are basically the number of people that are seeing your posts on throughout this 2 years and about 2 months. And I've actually created about 474 posts on LinkedIn during this time. So I've learned a lot, mainly by just testing and experimenting, and by no stretch of the imagination am I an expert on LinkedIn. But I wanted to create this episode just to share some of the things that I have learned over the past 2 years, with the hope that it helps you and helps you think about LinkedIn. Now, the complete honest truth of this is LinkedIn was very intimidating to me. I had friends and like family from India and friends that don't know me like in a professional setting, like with Selling the Couch, as LinkedIn friends, and there was always this like mental thing that I was navigating where I was like, do I want to post some of this stuff on LinkedIn? And I worried like if my friends would judge me or what they would say. For example, I do a lot of hikes, so I pretty much hike daily, and I kept wondering like what would people think if I was posting like daily hike selfies on LinkedIn. And but I pushed through it, which I'm just so grateful for. And some of those like fears around like being judged, and I have learned some pretty like surprising lessons, and I wanted to specifically share 5 lessons with you that I've learned along the way. So the very first thing is the magic is in the DMs. So DMs is direct messages. So it's especially on a platform like a LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or any of these or X where where the number of followers you have is very explicitly put on the profile, it's really easy to chase followers and comments. And I did that for a while, and what I found is I was burning out because I was trying to like churn out all of this content, and I was definitely getting followers, but I was also burning out, and I honestly don't even know if they were like the right type of followers. I think I was, attracting, for example, people that were, marketing folks that could help you grow on LinkedIn. But what I've learned along the way is focusing on thoughtful relationships are way better than chasing followers and comments. So kind of a couple of practical things. If you are listening and you're in private practice, LinkedIn has an amazing search tool. You can search by all sorts of things, like, for example, what city somebody on LinkedIn lives in, or what interests they have, or stuff like that. So what I would do is I would connect with local therapists using LinkedIn's filters. So you can say, for example, I want to find therapists in Philadelphia or something like that. You can also find therapists who have similar or the same specialties or are trained in a certain modality, perhaps as you are. So for example, like EMDR or IFS, because usually, so what LinkedIn is basically doing with their search tool is they're analyzing everybody's profiles. So if inevitably, for example, a therapist might have that they're IFS trained therapist or an EMDR trained therapist. And so LinkedIn is then able to capture that on the search. Now, here's kind of a next level strategy. If you want to guest on podcasts, which I think is such a smart play for every therapist, because if you're like, hey, Mel, at some point, maybe I want to create a podcast, but I just want to kind of feel it out. Or if you're like, Mel, I have no desire to create a podcast, but I do see the power of podcasting. I've mentioned this before, but from a strictly research perspective, there was a study that came out about a year ago, and they found that podcasters are the most trusted media personalities. And so definitely guesting on podcasts is a wise move because there's a connection that people feel to you. So what you can then do is you can search your niche plus podcast or plus podcaster, and you can kind of see what comes up. So essentially you are looking for folks that are in similar or aligned niches that also have podcasts. You can reach out to them, connect with them. Now here's kind of a key strategy. I highly recommend engaging with their posts. So leaving a thoughtful comment, not like an AI generated one, but like a smart, thoughtful comment. And before you actually send them a request to connect. So the reason for this is if you have a premium account on LinkedIn, premium users can see if you just search for them and then hit the connect, right? So I've gotten a ton of DMs like this, like, hey Mel, I've been following you for a while and love what you're doing. I'd love to connect. And then I look on their profile and then I saw literally they found me 10 minutes ago on search, and then are so basically they're not being truthful and they're just trying to connect with me for the sake of connecting or growing their business or something like that. Instead, this whole process of what I personally do is I engage with somebody's content for a couple of weeks, and then I'll send them just a quick DM and I'll just say, hey Mel, I've been really enjoying your posts, particularly the one on online courses. I'm thinking about creating an online course, so these tips have just been helpful. I would love to connect. So something like that is a way more genuine ask than, the previous example that I shared. Another thing you can do is you can share what resonated from the posts that they've created and how that's been impactful to you or to your business. The second tip or the thought that I wanted to share is the algorithm will always change. So LinkedIn, like many of these kind of platforms, they're basically when you create a post, they will send it out to a group of people. And if it's resonating for a lot of people, i.e. the post ends up getting engagement, it will end up pushing it out to more and more folks. Now, here's what I've kind of learned, being, I think, on both sides of this, where there was definitely a season where I was trying to chase virality so that I could grow my followers quickly. But what I found is don't chase trends, focus on consistency. So instead of, trying to post many times a day or trying to post like carousels, which are basically like PDFs, like think of it like a slide deck, like a PDF slide deck, which those are really popular on LinkedIn. Instead of just posting those like day after day, focus on diversifying your content. So for example, create just regular posts that share thoughts that you have. Other times include a post with perhaps a selfie that is ideally connected to what you shared in the post. Other times do something like a video short. So posting short on video and just including some text as well. Side note, we use Opus Clip for these. So what we basically do is when I record this podcast, I'm recording an audio version of the podcast and I'm also recording the video. The audio gets distributed to Apple and Spotify and Amazon Music and all of these folks. And the video version gets placed onto YouTube. What we then do is I use the URL for the video version, the YouTube URL, and run it through Opus Clip, and Opus Clip finds all of these like shorts using AI, like interesting moments in these videos, and then it will make recommendations of, like, it'll basically clip it. So you can say like, I only want, 30 to 60 second shorts created. And then the cool thing also is Opus Clip will then give you like a score. It'll say like, this is in terms of based on 0 to 100, and 100 being like the most engaging. And so basically you can then like post some of those shorts on LinkedIn as well. And now carousels are the same way. Carousels traditionally are, again, like almost like a PDF of a slide deck, like a PowerPoint slide deck is essentially the way that I think of a carousel. Carousels do really well because people, I don't know, for some reason I think it's just like they break apart the kind of the posts and the videos and that kind of content on LinkedIn. They also take a little bit more time to create. But now, all of that being said, I would still like diversify your content. So, generally what I try to do every week is post some combo of posts, some video shorts, and if I can try to get a carousel in, I'll try to get a carousel in. And if I don't put too much pressure on myself. I used to put a lot more pressure on myself on LinkedIn, and I just found that the process was just not getting as enjoyable. As therapists, we manage so many roles in private practice, from being a clinician to a business owner to doing all the things that we need to do to market our practice. It's really easy for all of us to feel overwhelmed, especially when we are juggling so many things. That's where the team at Alma comes in. This is a platform that I would consider if you are a solo practitioner that is either wants to take insurance or that is private pay, but just wants to hedge a little bit, especially to account for periods of economic uncertainty or weird things like hyperinflation, like we've been dealing with in more recent times. Alma makes it easier than ever to build a thriving private practice. They include a bunch of different cool stuff. So one is they have a members only platform where you can exchange resources with other clinicians, exchange referrals, and just find support. They have consultation groups as well. And they also offer CEUs as part of your membership at no additional cost. These are both live and on demand. Now, in order to get credentialed with Alma, typically to get credentialed with insurance, it takes months and months, but Alma actually has a 45-day credentialing process, and you actually get increased reimbursement rates. So they're often higher than if you were to go just through the insurance carrier and if you were just to apply as a solo practitioner. And the really cool thing is they guarantee payback within 2 weeks of when you see the client, so that you can ensure your income stays steady. You can see as few as like 1 client or 2 clients just to hedge a little bit. And Alma also has a HIPAA-compliant telehealth platform so that everything is safe and secure. Alma also has a bunch of different stuff to support clinicians, all the way from workshops and all sorts of things, as well as an online directory, so that you can continue to get referrals coming your way. The best part, the team at Alma was able to hook the Selling the Couch family and listeners with a unique code, which is over at sellingthecouch.com/Alma. That's actually for 2 months, absolutely free on Alma's platform. This is a non-advertised, like non-publicly advertised discount. So definitely encourage you to check it out over at sellingthecouch.com/Alma for a 60-day free trial, just to see if it makes sense for you. Basically, what you want to do is experiment on LinkedIn, but don't overthink the metrics. Also, just remember, one of the reasons that I went on to LinkedIn after just doing an audio podcast is I noticed that LinkedIn stuff was starting to get indexed by Google. So, for example, LinkedIn articles definitely get indexed by Google. And I've heard kind of mixed things, but LinkedIn posts are also, I think, starting to get indexed by Google. What's interesting is when I just ran I just put a private on my browser, like I went into private mode. My LinkedIn account was like one of the top 5 when you just search for my name, which is really interesting. So it's definitely getting indexed by Google. Now, as I alluded to, all of these different types of content, it's what I've seen over the past couple of years is there's a season where one type of content does really well, and then it moves on to like another type of content. So when I first got started, for example, carousels were extremely popular and they did really well. And then it kind of moved to like videos and video shorts. So those ended up, doing pretty well. Now, the key thing is, currently, like videos and shorts seem to be getting popular, but again, don't try to get hung up on like trying to just produce one type of content. Try to diversify, and I think it'll just make it like a lot more enjoyable and fun. The third tip is watch out for growth gurus. So I don't know, I think I was like a little naive when I got on LinkedIn, but all of these like social media platforms, whether it is like you run a Facebook group, or if you are on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, all of these platforms have folks that own agencies, or they're solopreneurs that focus on helping you grow on that specific platform. Now, there's definitely legit ones out there, and that are doing like amazing work in the world. But I've also found that many of them kind of over promise and under deliver. So just be a little bit careful as you get on LinkedIn. As you start posting more, you'll definitely attract like ideal clients, but you'll also attract sort of these growth gurus. And what I found is, just broadly, when I create content, I'm usually speaking to like a earlier version of me, which is, the therapist that was in clinical practice that now wants to diversify and expand into online income, specifically related to courses and podcasting and things like that. And I realized that I will never like quote unquote go viral or have like hundreds of thousands of people following me, just because there aren't like, I have a pretty niche audience. So I'm more interested in posting things that's going to resonate for a therapist that is struggling and navigating that, than I am trying to like quote unquote chase virality. Now, this is a side note, but I also try to find folks on LinkedIn. Again, this is just things that you can do over time, but I try to find folks who are growing a following where most of their content is not about growing on LinkedIn. So this is a little subtle nuance, but the folks that write about growing on LinkedIn, by and large, I think tend to, get followers, but I'm more interested in folks that are, writing kind of regular content, and how are they writing, what's resonating, that kind of stuff. The fourth point I wanted to share is followers are less relevant than you think. So it's about the right people, not all people. So what basically you can do is you have to turn on something on LinkedIn called creator mode. Now, if you're like unfamiliar with that, I had previously done a podcast on LinkedIn, but it's an option that you can turn on where basically it allows you to quote unquote have followers versus just connections. And I would highly recommend turning on creator mode, because the main thing is LinkedIn has a 30,000 person connection cap. So for me, realistically, it's probably going to take many years to get to that 30,000, but I'm also trying to think long term. And I'm like, okay, what would it be like? Who are the 30,000 people that I want in my first like network, my first degree network? And so basically, I think as you start to post more and more on LinkedIn, folks will follow you, but then folks will send you like connection requests. And you want to be really discretionary about who you connect with, because you basically want to curate your network intentionally. So for example, if you're connected to some pretty big folks, if you let in somebody, that also I think there's something with the algorithm where it's seen as beneficial. So I don't see it as like an arrogant thing. I'm just more like, okay, who are the folks that I want to connect with? And others, I kind of just give them the option of following me if they want. Now, the fifth and final point is the daily posting game is a slow burn. So if you follow any sort of LinkedIn experts, one of the things that they'll often tell you is post on a regular cadence, and ideally even like daily or even like multiple times a day. Now, I tried to do this, and it is extremely hard to post thoughtful content on LinkedIn and engage on LinkedIn, like especially if you're doing this like multiple times a day. I tried to do this and for a couple of months, and I quickly burnt out. And I've learned now to just pace myself with LinkedIn. I am kind of thinking about I'm always thinking like 10 years ahead. If I maintain this consistent pace, this pace that I'm maintaining now, what would it look like 10 years from now? That's what I'm focused on versus trying to focus on just like 1 month or even 1 year into this. For example, for me, I take what I call Walden months throughout the year. This is a shout out to Henry David Thoreau, but basically Walden months are times where I focus a lot on self-care. I work on big projects, but for the sake of LinkedIn, I actually pull back on posting on LinkedIn. I still post on LinkedIn, but I just don't post as frequently. And this just allows me to one, make sure that I still enjoy LinkedIn, make sure that I'm posting content that's actually going to be helpful to folks versus just posting it to feed an algorithm. This way of doing it, to be completely honest, it's definitely a slower way of growing. I have friends that we both started around the 2 year mark 2 years ago, and they now have 20, 30, 40, 50,000 followers, and I'm closer to 3,500. But the other side of this is, so one is there's not a high, I found, right? High followers doesn't necessarily mean high revenue or anything like that. But the other thing is I'm finding that even though I'm not growing as fast, I'm enjoying it because I'm able to just pace myself. And this mindset came from podcasting. The STC podcast is 10 years old this year. And one thing I realized early on, I kept all these podcasting coaches that I was working with would tell me, Mel, the average podcast lasts 7 months. And so if you can get past that, you're in good shape. And I just thought, okay, I got past the 7 episodes. So if I can just get past the 7 episodes, I can, I'm in good shape. But then once I get past the 7 episodes, I started really thinking, okay, I love podcasting. I want to do this for a long time. So how can I design it around my schedule? And so that's why even with this podcast, I only release live episodes about 6 months of the year, new episodes. The other 6 months we do replays. And the main reason is because I found that this is a good cadence for me, especially like having a young daughter and managing multiple responsibilities. And I took the same mindset to LinkedIn. And what I'm realizing is consistency and sustainability are way better than like speed and burnout. So i.e. trying to post a whole bunch of content and not really getting anywhere. So I hope that you found this podcast really helpful. I wanted to make this like less tactical, but more of like, hey, here's the mindsets that I think has been helpful for me on the first 2 years on LinkedIn. Again, the magic is in the DMs. Second, the algorithm will always change, so don't get too caught up in that. Third, watch out for growth gurus. So there's definitely folks that can give a wealth of knowledge on terms of what's working on LinkedIn, but trying to like follow what they're exactly saying while not filtering through what makes sense for you. I think it's usually a formula for burnout. And the fourth one is followers are less relevant than you think. So it's more about the quality of followers. And the fifth one is the daily posting game is a slow burn. The daily posting game is a slow burn. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can go to sellingthecouch.com/LinkedIn if we haven't connected there. Yeah, I would, and if anything, just I would love to connect, and then feel free to also send me a DM and say, hey Mel, I heard this episode, and I'm connecting with you, and I try to respond to all the DMs that I get. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.